Author Richard Bach says, "The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives." That statement is certainly true of the Harbour family. The students and their families become a part of something bigger than themselves as they strive together to achieve success. Once that success is attained, our students and their families stay connected to each other and to the Harbour School. This is the essence of Harbour Magic, the family we create by finding respect and joy in the lives of one another.
You always walk a step behind, so I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. Without a name for so long, a beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero, and everything I would like to be? I can fly my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed, but I've got it all here in my heart. I want you to know I know the truth. I know I would be nothing without you. Did you ever know that you're my hero?
I am very excited this year about the couple who are our Harbour heroes, Carole and Greg Spurrier. Carole and Greg have the honor of being the parents of not one, but two Harbour School graduates. And both of these kids are really super duper kids. They have been very successful. They have moved on after Harbour. Matt, their son, has turned into a marvelous cook, and he makes killer food and killer rolls. I would strongly recommend that you visit his restaurant and get some. Both of these young people have done very, very well for themselves. Carole and Greg have always supported our school. In fact, early on in the history of the Harbour School, we bought a Harbour School bus. Then we found out that the average driver's license person cannot drive a Harbour School bus. Fortunately for us, Greg Spurrier had a commercial driver's license. However, his license allowed him to haul freight, but not kids. So he very, very generously went back to school, took the extra licensing so that he could have a commercial driver's license that allowed him to transport kids in the Harbour School bus. And transport he did. He carried our kids back and forth from our main campus to our career center for a very long time until we could afford, and it was all volunteer, until we could afford to hire someone who also was licensed to carry kids back and forth. So you can see that the Spurriers have been Harbour heroes for a very long time. Carole was in her corporate days before she became a restaurant owner. Carole was very involved with recent technologies and with AT&T before the major breakup. As a hotshot corporate executive, Carole was always very careful to make sure that we got donations both from the corporation and from the Spurriers themselves. In the years since Matt and Hillary have graduated from Harbour and gone on to lead very responsible lives, the Spurriers, Carole and Greg, have continued to very generously donate to our annual fund every single year. There's so many wonderful things for our students. And so we thought this was a good time for us to do a turnaround and for us to honor Carole and Greg and to say thank you. We are so grateful that you still love us and that you still honor us with your donations, even though your children have long since left Harbour School.
Well, let me just talk about that for a minute, because there were many years when I would be at work or in social engagements, and people would talk about where their kids were going to college, and they'd ask us, and we'd explain there wasn't going to be college. As a matter of fact, we had college funds for both of them, and when it became clear they weren't going to happen, that wasn't in their future, I said to Greg, what are we going to do with the college fund? And his answer was, big boat, really big boat. But I mean, I used to break into tears when they talk about them getting married or where they were going to go to college or whatever. And it never occurred to me that our children would find spouses. And as Dr. J said to me one day, people are friends with people who are like themselves. So now I don't have 2 special children, now I have 4 special children. But they found some happiness, and isn't that what we all want for our children? Matthew loved it. Wouldn't you say that, Greg?
Yeah, he did.
He did
Hillary hated it.
well, that comes later. Matthew got back his self-esteem. When he came here, he didn't speak at all till he was 5, and when he came here, he was recovering from the depression that he had suffered as a result of, I think, being in a normal school environment. So he was doing well. They had set up a special timeout for him outside the classroom so that when he couldn't do anymore, he was allowed to put himself in. And he wasn't medicated at the time. I had resisted medication. Through both his doctors and the Harbour School, they talked me into, giving him some medication so he could attend better. And he did pretty well. Funny story about him in 2nd grade. He had told everybody he couldn't read. And one day they came in and he was reading a joke book to the other students. And the teacher said, Matthew, we thought you couldn't read. Shook his head. He says, big mistake, big mistake. Well, I think the Harbour School saved both of my children's lives. And, we were talking on the way when we were driving from Ocean City today. Our daughter didn't start until she was in 9th or 10th grade, I forget. And life outside of the Harbour School had robbed her of her self-esteem. And for Matthew, that never happened. He had one year where he was clinically depressed, and he came here, he was still very young. And to bring that to mind, one day I had asked him about a young lady who was in one of his classes. He was probably 8 or 9 at the time, maybe 10. And she had an arm that she wasn't able to use. She held it close to her body. And I said, Matthew, tell me about, make up a name, Katie, tell me about her. And he looked at me with the wisdom that comes, and he says, Mom, we're all special at the Harbour School. We're just special in our own ways. Mm-hmm. He was never robbed of his self-esteem. And so he's managed a little better. Mm-hmm. During her senior year, Greg came to me and he said, we can't continue like this. She's not going to graduate. He actually quit his job to stay home full time. And he would drive her to school every day. And she'd say, well, I'm not going to stay. He'd say, that's fine, you can walk home, but you're going to come. We also had a friend who was an Anne Arundel County policeman, and he would stop in the black and white and pick her up and bring her back. So, but she ended up graduating mid-year, a year after she should have. And for the last year and a half, she was privately tutored. And when she would quit, they would say to her, Hillary, you may quit us, but we'll never quit you. And when she graduated, because she was infamous, she had taken all of the books off the library shelves a couple times, and she quit on a regular basis and did her job of acting out. Dr. J stood in front of the whole assembly and said, now you all know Hillary. If Hillary can graduate, you can all graduate. So there's hope for everyone.
The entire family, even aunts and uncles that we met, would talk to us about what a good job the Harbour School was doing for the 2 Spurrier kids. They were always so complimentary, so that when you came away from an event that they were involved in, you were just all puffed up with pride, because they appreciated what we were doing, understood it, offered to get in the trench with us, and often did. And for that, we are grateful for not only their financial support, which has continued through the years, but for the moral support throughout the time that we had the kids. It's our pleasure to have them as Harbor's heroes this year.
Thanks for helping the school.
Thank you, Mrs. and Mr. Spurrier.
Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you've done.
Thank you for helping me reach my goal.
Thank you for making her good at.
Dear Harbour School, thank you for the iPads because they really helped me.
Mr. and Mrs. Spurrier, thank you for making our school great.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping me learn.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Spurrier, for making our school great.
Thank you for all you did for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Spurrier.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Spurrier. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Spurrier. Thank you for all that you do for us.
Okay.
We're really glad that you're participating in this auction.
Thank you for making the harbor magic.